You're with Pastorpedia, and today we're talking about the church aging. And I just want to say, personally, I appreciate that you let me stay with this role here in Pastorpedia for this long. Hey, the church is aging, and we've got to deal with it. That is not me. Let's talk about aging, and that's our subject today. Pastorpedia, how does the church get younger? Guys, I'm with Jim Brown, Jeff Bogue, I'm Newt Larson. I'm headed that way, but not yet. How do we know when we need to get younger as a church?
Well, I wrote down the minute you open the doors, you need to get younger, right? So it's an always thing because churches naturally age. I saw a thing years and years ago that affected me where they said the average life cycle of a church is 40 years. Yeah. And they said, think of a conveyor belt, a group of young people get on that belt and it starts moving. You have babies, you have teenagers, they leave the church, and then the belt dumps you off. And so at Grace, one of the things we've done is we've made an intentional effort to feed the front end of that belt. We always need to be thinking about the next generation, how to reach them, how to connect with them. And that doesn't mean fog machines and lasers necessarily. It's just a mindset that the church isn't for me, it's for those who have not yet discovered Christ. So it's an ongoing process, and as a pastor, you need to have a healthy paranoia about that. Am I always reaching the current culture that we are existing in as a church?
Just check your median age. I mean, if you need something practical, just look out there and, okay, what's the average age of the person there? Walk to your nurseries. Are there any babies? Are there anybody in your children's ministry? Look out there. Is it all gray hair? It's just do some, just take your eyes and take a walk. Yeah, just every Sunday do that.
And the video of the sermon, I watch a lot of videos because I'm asked to coach. And you ought to know immediately by the backs of people's heads. We got to get kids in here and young adults.
Yeah, if there's a lot of newts, you're in trouble.
That's right. That's right. You saw what happened to me. And, you know, before we even go further, many pastors and people that are watching this, church leaders, hurt in this area. Mm-hmm. And they're in churches where they've tried to get younger, and the young people are moving away. So we don't take it lightly. And you guys lead progressive and expanding churches, and God's so good. God's good to the guy who's faithful with everybody who's 40 and over or 60 and over. But,
absolutely.
Okay. Is the answer always to rock and roll and slit your jeans?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the only answer.
Show your jeans.
That's right from the Bible. Actually, no. Here's the answer. And this is a phenomenal thing. It's actually encouraging to those of you who may have churches older right now. Barna has come out with a whole bunch of new research. I just sat through a long seminar with him. And this is what they're saying about the millennial generation, and then the generation below them, which would be teenagers right now. It's called Generation Y. They're saying warmth is the new cool. So instead of lights and lasers, it's the open heart, the open hand, the open home. Mm-hmm. And what these kids are missing are parents and grandparents. Your music should be current. Whatever music you do should be done well, and it should be authentic. So if you're not authentically kind of into new music, don't do it. It'll be lame. If you're authentically into more traditional music, go ahead and do it, but do it well. Don't just let Sally sing because it's her turn.
She's the wife of the building chairman.
Yeah, don't do that, right? She's got to be good. But if you'll welcome young people, you'll invest in their lives. There was a study in that Barna research, and they looked at one church that was aging but growing substantially with millennials. They found a guy named Bill. He had something called Bill's Brigade. Bill was in his 70s. He rallied all of the grandparents in the church. They started simply opening their homes, going to the people in their 20s events. This girl singing at a coffee shop, this brigade would show up and support her. And they were growing rapidly in millennials simply because they were warm and loving and open to these people.
And a warm person is not, I want to say this with respect for my grandkids, our grandkids. I meant my wife and I, not you guys. But serious, it's not that you have to be so techie. It's
No.
they need somebody who can talk to them because everybody else is doing this.
I would also just be willing even to engage them on their level too. If it need be that they are communicating through text or whatever it is, learn how to use a phone so you can text them. But get into the world, engage them. And I would say another thing too, important too, your stage is powerful. Your platform is powerful. So the age of the people that you put on the stage is a big. When someone walks in on Sunday morning, they look up there. What's the age up there? They'll say, I'm not coming back if it's all a certain age. So be careful who you put on the stage too.
There's the book of the year of Outreach Magazine is this one, Growing Young.
Excellent book.
It is a great book. And the 6 reasons that churches are growing young, and this is all by surveys. It's a boring book in one way, except you see, I can do all of these in any church. None of these are rock and roll, or it's caring about young people. It's what you said about sincerity and authenticity or warmth, a warm community, and it's priority. I think one of the first part-time staff, or at least point person, ought to be go after these young adults and have a good youth program. More on that. Is somebody on your staff caring about this age?
Yeah, I'll give you, for instance, we had a desire to always reach the younger generation, and more recently trying to go after that age that's post-high school. And so we put someone that had a heart for that ministry. We gave them a warm place to meet. I engage them. We give them stage time. We let them know that they're valuable, but it comes back to your heart as a pastor. Do you love them? Do you care about them? Are you vulnerable? Are you transparent? Are you able to walk into their world and just engage with them? They need to see that you're real too.
And I would say if you have a staff, I rarely hire anybody who's not in their 20s. And so I want them to grow up. I like to say I'd rather mold clay than chisel granite. And so we tend to be young because our staff is young. Now, if you don't have a big staff, it's leadership then. And letting people in their 20s and 30s, breaking the glass ceilings, letting them be on the boards, letting them make the announcements, maybe preach. They're not going to be as good at it, and that doesn't matter. To a younger generation, it doesn't matter if you're polished, it matters if you're authentic. And so letting those folks up on the stage, letting that young, dad who's in his 30s maybe fill the pulpit when you're on vacation one week, like letting him in that leadership and shaping and molding them and being okay with their mistakes. That's what somebody did for you and for me. Like Pastor Bob Combs, my mentor, let me up there, and I'm sure he cringed a lot.
I remember he would often call me.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. But that's the way you learn to do it. We do the same thing. You cringe, and sometimes because they didn't do a good job, sometimes because you don't understand what they're doing, because they talk 2-3 generations low, but they take an ownership of the church, and now it's theirs as much as it's anybody else's. In a smaller church, let your youth group up there. Let them do things. It's their church then, not their mom and dad's or somebody else.
You don't separate it from big church to little church or youth church. It's all one church, especially when your gatherings on Sunday mornings. Make sure there's people of their age part of that somehow, whether they're serving, doing ushering, whatever it is.
Okay, tough call. The guy in the hall is saying about, especially in a church that's just starting to blossom or grow, why are we doing that? And it's often around music. What do you say to the older person, maybe my age, though I fight for this? I don't want to change like that.
I go, here's a question to ask him. How much would you give? What would you do to see your grandchild come to Christ? And so just bring it down and say, what would you do? What thing would you do to reach them for Jesus? And I bring it right to their level. And generally speaking, I would say the majority of the time, they would do anything. And I said, that's what we want to do. That's why we're trying to reach the younger generation, because you have grandchildren, other people have grandchildren, and they need reached. I would start at the exact same place. I want to get them off music and onto mission.
Good.
And do we want them to do this? The other thing I would say is, I had somebody ask me one time, how do you know what kind of music your folks like in your church? And I said to them gently, I said, I could care less what kind of music the people in my church like. I care what kind of music a 24-year-old unchurched male likes. So we're trying to communicate to an age range. And then I'll look at my folks and say, if I could reach your grandchild for Christ, would you let me play 4 songs for them? Just 4 songs a week, that's it. Would you tolerate 4 songs a week? Well, yeah, okay. The 4 songs that we sing on Sunday is for them, not you. And that everything, communion, whatever's on your phone, that's all for you. But those 4 songs, let us do it for them. And if we can help folks get mission-minded, and a lot of these generation, we've talked about this before in Pastorpedia, they are absolutely mission-minded.
Yeah.
They may not understand how to execute it in a different way, which I don't either. I have to listen to the young people now, right? But if we can get there, then those become irrelevant issues. And if somebody's stubborn, they're stubborn, and you got to deal with them.
And you deal with preference and conviction differently.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
The church often, I grew up more than you guys in a church that, they believed the primaries and the secondaries, but majored on the tertiaries. We didn't go to school, we didn't go to the movies, or we didn't, we didn't dance or chew or date the girls that do. And it becomes a standard rather than mission. Yeah. All right, a final question, and let's remember the pastor out here who's pastoring 50 as well as 500.
Yeah.
What is the pastor's role about this? We've implied it the whole time, but let's lay it on ourselves as pastors.
I would say you should have a burden for the younger generation. And if you don't have a burden to reach the world for Jesus, when the majority of people are millennials and younger, then what does that say about you? For me, in my community, I lose sleep over the younger generation, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to reach them. That's what God has called me to do.
So I said this: empower, give credibility, listen to their ideas. They have good ideas. They're just different ideas because they come from a different place. Give ownership. Let them actually do their thing instead of asking them to do your thing. Teach them, lead them, instruct them. There's a dear friend of mine named Bud Oshesky, pastors a church in Rittman, Ohio. He has done something incredible. I love him, respect him so much for this. We have a lot of interns and residents at our church. Bud lets them come and preach at his church. And he and his congregation, he's given his congregation a vision that they're training up these young guys to learn to preach. So Bud, he's there. He teaches them, he instructs them, he corrects them, like that wasn't that great to do. But he also gives them credibility and leads them. And it's brought life to what we're trying to do and life to what he's trying to do. And it's because the pastor, Bud, got behind it and said, this is an exciting thing. And he gave them credibility with it. So it's great. Phenomenal.
I would say that some pastors are more interested in their paycheck, keeping their paycheck and getting paid, than they are about reaching people. And so if it ever gets you more interested in not reaching people than you are, obviously staying on Sunday morning thinking this paycheck's more important, I can't make this change, then maybe you should think about leaving the church too.
It's a huge issue. And our Lord, if he were here pastoring, and he is beside us or in us, would tell us, love that person. Don't ever think I'm 55 or I'm 75 and I shouldn't go talk to that teenager. Lead the way and share it with your board and your other leaders how much we love to grow people in Christ and to reach people who are outside of him and the young. Pastorpedia today on growing young. Grab this book if you like, Growing Young. We have notes on this stuff also from Pastorpedia, Jim Brown, Jeff Bogue, Knut Larson. Not the skeleton. God's good.
Not yet.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Jeff Bogue. This is Jim Brown, and we're here with our friend Knut Larson. And we're talking about aging this week on Pastorpedia. And how long exactly should you stay in ministry before you think about retirement? Knut, what are your thoughts? So maybe think about secession a little before. Oh my! We lost Knut.
Well, that's it for Pastorpedia. Until next time.